Okay, delighted to be welcoming Dianna Jacobsen as our guest today for Live at Lunch. I've been connected with Dianna since February, I think it was, last year.
Last year.
So it's over 18 months. I've had the pleasure of learning lots of tricks and tools to help me managing my finances and thinking of finance in a different way too. So introducing Dianna today with the session, and would like to welcome all our live participants who are here today and for anyone watching our recording. So Dianna's from China Business, based in Albury, which one?
Wodonga. Yeah, Albury, Wodonga, northeast Victoria.
They're connected. Yeah. And Dianna has some amazing experiences. She goes often to Tasmania to help people financially. She goes down to Melbourne and goes live on radio with sessions. She's got an ebook. She's got websites. She's got an amazing business and a collaboration with the Rural Woman and as well. So I'd like to introduce you to Dianna today for our session.
Thanks, Viv, and hi, everyone. Today I thought we could talk about something that we all battle with a little bit, I think, the wealthy you. So uncover, unlock and unleash the wealthy you. And when I talk about wealthy, I mean that in holistic terms. So well-being, freedom of choice, opportunities, enjoying nature, healthy food, music, nice candles or baths or hand creams or sitting in front of the fire or time with loved ones, all of those sorts of things that contribute to our sense of wealth and well-being. Because usually we make wealth about money, and then we make that a measure of our success or not, whether we've been successful or whether we feel like we're a failure, whether we measure up is often measured and quantified in terms of money and dollars. And I don't believe that's how it should be measured. And I also believe that when we feel wealthy in so many other aspects, then the money starts to take care of itself. So I thought I'd just share some little tools and diagrams today that I find helpful in explaining these concepts to people. And I also write for a few magazines, and there's one particular article that I like to share, so I'll put it on this Facebook page afterwards, about uncover, unlock and unleash the wealthy you. There's always other resources that I've got if that's of interest to anyone, but these are really things that you can just use for yourself to perhaps start breaking through some of those barriers and challenges that we all perhaps come across at different times around money, but also around our own sense of well-being and self-worth. So if I share my screen and go to the white here, hopefully everyone can see that. Please feel free to unmute yourselves at any stage and ask a question. I'm not sure if I'll still get the chat box up while I've got the whiteboard open, so
I'll monitor it for you, Dianna. If you like.
Please interject if there's any questions. Yeah, interject if I miss any questions, because it's better if we have this as a discussion that everyone can make more useful to themselves. Sure. But the way I explain what I do, just to give a little bit of background, is I come from an accounting and financial planning background, as well as a lot of counselling and mindset and all sorts of other modalities, and as well as a lot of business development work. So in a nutshell, just to get the context for the conversation, is I say that people have an accountant and they might have a financial planner, they might have a bank manager or a mortgage broker, and they might have a solicitor, might have an insurance rep, and often we have the bloke at the footy, or parents or mother-in-law or friend or neighbour or whoever else. And here we are standing in the middle, everybody telling us something a bit different depending on their professional expertise, their specialty. And we're standing in the middle going, who on earth do I listen to? I just want to be a plumber, or whatever it is. So the role that I've positioned myself, because I have most of these professional qualifications, is to tie all of this together to stand here and hold your hand and to work out what all of these people are saying and what it means for this person in the middle, and just say, here's the action plan that you need, whether it's around your tax, whether it's around your borrowing and debt restructure, whether it's legal stuff, whether it's business development, superannuation, whatever. So just as a bit of a context, that's my background in all those professional areas. And as Viv said, I work nationally and I have some radio shows and magazine articles and books and things like that. But to try and change the slant from all of these academic jargon-filled professions to working with this person, not affiliated with any bank or anybody, but to work here on a hands-on level. So one of the places that I explain this to people is with this. As I said, we measure success or sense of worth and wealth by a dollar, whether it's at the bottom of our bank statement or our profit and loss statement if we're in business, either one. So whatever it is, whether it's a household or a business, it's still the same in that we go through the income and the expenses and we see where we can squeeze in a bit, and we check our margins if we're in business, and we might check our rental or our insurance or our phone plan, and we squeeze where we can and we do all the sensible things. But after a point, it just becomes restrictive. And I've worked with a lot of small business owners and households on, I just can't make the ends meet. And that's one of the areas that I come in and put some strategies and sequences in place that no matter where they're starting from, we can move forward and we can get beyond that horrible, struggle. But invariably I hear people say, my biggest challenge is cash flow. I challenge that by saying you can't fix cash flow with cash, because cash flow is like the scorecard and the dollar figure is the scorecard as a result of how we spend our time, what marketing we do, staff or our team, and the cost of the inputs, whatever it is that we're putting into this, whether it's a household or business. Because all of these things impact on and are impacted by this bottom line. Obviously, when we have more marketing and more staff, we get a bigger bottom line, but we also need the money here to employ staff and do the marketing and so on. So that's one side of the equation. The other side of the equation, though, that is equally as important and still comes into my definition of wealth are health, relationships, family, and particularly for women, life balance. Because these things have just as much impact on this bottom line as do the other side, and are just as impacted by how much money is in the bank. Because obviously the more money we have to access, the less stress we have. It doesn't take the toll on our health and our relationship, not working as many hours to affect our family and the life balance. But for a lot of us as busy mums and perhaps small business owners, the things on this side down here really take a hiding as we're trying to, keep everything afloat. From there, the next part that I would explain to people, hang on, let me go back to draw. Draw, thank you. Is what I call mindset. So if down here, this is mindset. So what I mean by that is some days when you get out of bed and you trip over the dog and you spill your coffee and you can't find your car keys and, you just think, oh no, it's just going to be one of those days. Other days go swimmingly. We get the green lights and the car parks and we get the opportunities. We run into the people we need, get the right phone calls and feel like we're really in the zone. And most of the time we're just somewhere in the middle. Often if life's been a struggle for a while in terms of money or any other area, whether it's health, relationships, life balance, issues with family, anything in our life, then often we're down here. And a lot of the time when I get called in by bank managers or other professionals and referred to a client, by the time they've struggled for a while, they're down here. So the first thing that we need to do is just raise this a little bit, because we can't fix any of these top areas if we're just convinced it won't work. Even if we don't know how it's going to work, my role is to come in and work with families and just at least show them that there's a way it can be fixed. And from there, when we just can, just get a little bit of optimism back, we can tie this all together and then we can shine. And this is what I call empowerment. It's bringing all of those things together. Doesn't mean we've got everything under control at every moment of the week and the day in our life, but it's that sense of wealth and well-being in terms of having all of those areas reasonably handled. Does anyone have any questions from that so far? Does that make sense, or any comments? Please just unmute yourself if you want to say anything. And yes, Viv, it is a light bulb moment.
And that, the whiteboard worked fantastically. That was really
good.
Easy to, easy.
My high quality drawing skills.
Yeah, oh no, all readable, great. Yeah, so has anyone got any questions or comments? We've got people from mixed, from business, from employment.
I was just going to ask, what's the demographic here with people in business? Because I'm happy to share a couple more little hints around managing money and things that you can just use in your own life. Does anyone have any questions, or we keep going? Just be aware too that as we're talking about money and finance and numbers, how that's feeling, inside your stomach, because quite often people have a lot of resistance around those words because maths wasn't their thing at school. They feel stupid. They feel inadequate. If we've dealt with professionals that use a lot of jargon, then often we feel quite intimidated and inferior. So just be aware of whatever's going on for you in that regard. And it might be uncomfortable. Just accept that for a minute, because I'm not going to throw in a lot of numbers. That's not the way that I work. So if you're feeling resistant to, she's going to talk about money and numbers and maths, please just bear with us, because I'll do it differently. Okay, well, I'll go back to sharing the screen. Go back to the whiteboard. Have a bit more of a look at some what I call money rules. So in life, what happens is, if this is 0, and if we've been brought up with some limiting beliefs around money, because a lot of us were brought up with scarcity and struggle. I come from Broadacre wheat and sheep background in the Riverina of New South Wales. So, there was certainly that scarcity mentality, because you got a wheat check and a wool check each year, and you never knew whether they were going to be big or small, and that had to last for as long as it had to last. So there was always that scarcity, that sort of boom or bust kind of feel. And with life, that also sometimes gives us experiences that teach us that life's a struggle financially and in other ways. And what happens is, it's a bit like pouring water into a bucket with holes in it. We can put money in, money in, money in. If it's got holes in it, there's leakages and the water just pours out. So we're taught generally, and certainly by accounting and bankers and so on, the way that it generally has been taught is that we get paid for something, and then we pay everybody that we owe. And if there's any left over, we think we deserve to go out for tea, and maybe we do. But what we're actually doing is putting ourselves back to 0. It's like we've pulled all the stoppers out of the bucket and the water's all leaked out. So it becomes this kind of an existence, a bit like yo-yo dieting. But what happens is we see, a glimpse of money come in, and we go, oh, fantastic, I've got my week's pay, or I've been paid for a project, paid by a client, pay, back to here. And that feels horrible. You know, we feel really disheartened. We worked really hard. We had a glimpse of that money and there's none left. Instead of that pattern, it just is very disempowering. What we want to do is get this sort of a pattern. We want to gradually raise our mindset and then raise our money. You might have heard of people who have won the lotto or come into money somehow, and a year later there's none left. And what they've done is their mindset hasn't changed. And people are not even aware of this, so there's no judgment on that. It's just that we go to the level that is congruent with our subconscious, with our conditioning. And as I said, for many of us, our conditioning is struggle, scarcity, down to zero. It's not comfortable, but it's familiar. Instead, what we can do is if we raise our mindset a little, then our money will raise a little. Mindset a little, money a little. Mindset a little, money a little. And so we can gradually raise the level of where the water's leaking out. And by doing this sort of a plan with our money, regardless of where we're starting from, then we feel more empowered, and in turn it starts to become more empowering. We start to see the evidence of wealth in all its guises. So it could be that there's money, but often we don't want money for money's sake. We want whatever it is we want the money for. So for example, not very long ago, I thought I really needed a new belt, and, you know, just mental note that next time I'm somewhere I'll have a look for belts, and called in to see a friend that I hadn't seen for quite a while, and she had a couple of things there for the kids that her kids are growing out of, and she had this really nice leather belt, and she said, I never use this, do you want it? And it was fantastic because, you know, I didn't want money for money's sake, but I wanted it to buy a new belt. So those sorts of things start to show up in your life when your mindset starts to raise that little bit. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, a comment I wanted to make too, Dianna, about what you're saying about, you know, if someone wins the lotto. I was watching a show, I think it might have been, it was just an ad maybe for Survivor, and the fellow was talking about when he wins, he's going to take it to the casino. There it goes, whoop, whoop, straight down.
Yeah, exactly. And that people don't.
Thousands it was. That wasn't enough. He wanted to make it more, but he was actually, you know, going to lose it instantly. So.
And they don't even realise that if they invested that money, they could still make, you know, $100,000 a year from the interest, or, you know, whatever the investment is that they get the return on. So there's still plenty of play money without sacrificing, you know, the capital. But it's what people do. They don't know any different. But if we can raise the mindset a little, the money will follow. And in money and other things that we needed the money for, we'll get little, I see this a lot play out when I've done this process with clients and with people, or presented at conferences or whatever. People will report back that, you know, they got a little refund, they'd overpaid their power bill, or they come into some little windfall that they weren't expecting, or just, you know, got something given to them that they were needing, and it turned up out of the blue. All those little things are what I mean by wealth or money coming to you. And it's amazing how it happens. It's really cosmic, but once you can start to see yourself as wealthy, then these little things start to fall into place. Yeah.
And I think too, Dianna, it's that awareness and looking at your finances too. And an example, we were on a Rural Women's Treat, and one of the ladies was feeling really lacking. And after the weekend, she actually looked and found out that she'd overpaid her power bill.
That's right, by hundreds of dollars.
Yeah. It was automatically being paid. And so just by looking, because she was so concerned about the scarcity of it, she wasn't looking at what was actually there in front of her, and just by being open to it. So it's not about making big bucks necessarily, but it's about, finding those little things that can make such a difference.
That's right. So with the money rules that I talk about, I won't go in and unpack it all here, but I'm very happy to connect with anyone separately and, you know, have a chat for 20 minutes or something and answer any questions. But it's about putting away a little bit each week. It might be $5, and that you pay yourself first before everything else goes out. And that's how you're raising the water level a little bit, because instead of paying everybody and going, oh, there's none left for me, pay yourself first. And $5 a week is all it needs to be. It doesn't matter about the amount, but it's that feeling that you have inside that there's some left for me. Everyone else gets whatever they've got allocated. And again, I've got a whole cash strategy that I unpack around that with households, families, small business owners or whatever, to try and spread that out more consistently. But it's just getting in the practice of putting that $5 away. I suggest that you put $5 a week into a fun money account that you can use for anything without justification. And it can be $50 a week as long as you're not cutting short other things, because you don't want to be putting it back in to other purposes, or you're breaking your rules. And having a wealth account, because wealthy people have a wealth account. So if you open a little iSaver account, and again, put $5 a week if that's what works, or $5 a month, whatever. But it's, again, that sense of I'm wealthy because I have a wealth account. And if you keep the amount small, then you don't have to break your rules, and then it tends to gain momentum. It's quite cosmic, but if we honour our money rules, then other things are sort of attracted to that. And I've got a couple of minutes left, I think, Viv, so I would just quickly like to share another little cosmic diagram, but illustrate this. This is a speedo reading, and around here is when we feel negative, and around here is when we feel positive, happy, and we are in the middle. So often when I talk to people and we're talking about money and finance, their needle's going way over here. They're feeling disempowered, out of control, and so on. What happens, because we are energetic beings, as in we operate in a field of feelings, wherever we feel is kind of what life reflects back at us. If we're feeling really dejected about anything, then health, money, jobs, relationships, opportunities, whatever, that's when we get out of bed, kick our toe, fall over the dog, spill our coffee, and so on. What most of us don't realise is that we have the ability to change this in any moment by changing our thoughts, our self-talk, and our feelings. It's a bit of Pollyanna stuff, but we can do it. It doesn't have to be about the same topic. So if this feeling is about money, you might want to go out and go for a walk in nature, or play with your dog, or sing a song, or have a bath or something, because then your feeling goes over here and life reflects back a new set of outcomes around money, health, job, relationships, opportunities. So if we're in business, this is the space we want to be in to do any marketing. If we're worried about money, then it's not going to work from over here. But if we've stepped out of feeling horrible about money and, gone and sung a happy song and gone for a walk, or had a cup of tea in the sun or something, then when we come back to look at our money, we won't go as far down. Effectively, we've raised this. It's very hard to raise it from a starting point where you're feeling dejected. You've really got to shift your energy and go over here and then come back. But then when we come back and do our money or whatever else it is, we get a new set of results that's higher up. So just be aware that you can shift your own energy at any point with here inside this circle, just by changing the state of where you are and what you're doing before you come and tackle difficult conversation or a problem or whatever's happening in life. So hopefully that gives you a few tips, just even to start with, around money and finance. And I'll put my phone number in the chat here, because I'm very happy to make a time, if you want to text me, set up a time for a 20, 30-minute phone chat to answer anything I can pertinent to your own situation. Because obviously everybody's money situation is different. So hence, today's chat was fairly generic, but just start to picture the wealthy you, do some vision boards, do some pretending in your head, imagine that there's $50,000 sitting in an account. So what would you do? Doesn't mean you go out and spend it, but just that feeling of knowing that's back there and I feel secure. and then do all the things that make you feel wealthy with whatever you have. So if that's nice hand creams, if it's nice music, if it's walking in nature or playing with the dog, all those things that make our hearts sing, because that's what attracts wealth and well-being to us in life.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dianna. I've also shared a link. We're building up some resources for a longer term connection with Dianna if you'd like that, so, or more details. So there's a registration link on that page if you'd like to connect with that. And
thanks, Viv.
Yeah, no worries. And so, yes, I've used a lot of what Dianna's suggested. I've got that, the graph that you had of the ups and the downs. So my up and downs up at a higher level. I've got my wealth account. I've got a fund money account. And I've now got a car account.
Car account, great.
Little bits and at a time, and like only this week working with the tax office and paying an arrangement of smaller amounts. So I've still got cash flow. So there's all those little tips that I've learned from Dianna, which have made such a difference to, and I think I'm still working on that, on the money and my own mindset. And but it's certainly a lot more positive than it has been, thanks to working with you.
Well, we don't get perfect, we all slip back, that's just normal, but when we're aware of it, we can kind of catch ourselves before we spiral down and have the option of, shifting.
Yes.
Before it becomes problematic. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I might just quickly share my screen just to show you what we've got. So with that link that I've put in the text chat, we've got the Shine It Business page, and there's a video and there's other things, and we're going to be adding, contributing and growing this information. And so you can register for updates if you specifically want things in relation to improving your business and your mindset on finance. And then also next week we have our live at lunch. I'll be presenting all about different webinars. This has been twice this session. I don't know if it's got a bug. So next week it's going to happen. We're looking at the different webinar programs and which ones to choose. So I'll be leading through a discussion on that and giving you some resources and a link to a whole comparison table on different webinar tools. There's so many out there. So we're going to be talking about how you could potentially consider which ones to go for. So for anyone, the live at lunch, you can register, and I then follow up with connections about the upcoming ones. So once you've registered once, you're right. But I do want, if you are particularly interested in working with Dianna and Shine It Business, then do register here for a different mailing connection so that we update the people who want to. Okay. So delighted to have you all here joining us today. We've had a lovely crowd. And wishing you, Dianna, first of all, a thanks for being my guest. Second one, and we've got Diane coming up in about a fortnight who's going to be doing another session. So we've got lots of different guests, different sessions coming up. And I want to wish everyone a fantastic week.
Thanks, Viv. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Great. Okay. I'll stop the recording there.